What's happening? Well, welcome to our weekly live training. My goodness, I'll tell you what, we had some fun last week. I was getting back into the live training game through our Facebook group, and then guess what happened? Well, of course, we had some audio issues. We had some basic tech issues. I forgot to put my phone on Do Not Disturb, and then all of a sudden, nobody could hear me after a call came in, and the whole big thing, right? So I just decided, here's what we're going to do. We're going to host our weekly lives in a webinar format, okay? And we're going to host them. We're going to host them on here, and then we'll have replay links that we can send out for those who aren't able to make it. So thank you so much for tuning in. I want to give a quick shout out. My buddy Keith, who I'm pretty sure is going to be watching this. He's actually one of my coaching clients. I know he's going to be watching the replay of this because I think he has a power lunch session right now as I'm doing this. But bro, I just wanted to say, I put this shirt on for you, man. Fight on. Ducks fan over there. I just can't endorse such a thing. Anyway, so we're talking today, hopefully without the audio issues. Okay. We're talking today without the audio issues, and excited to be spending a little bit of time with each of you. Our subject matter today is really about lead generation. And it's about how we can find opportunities that are already in our pipeline. We are today kind of doing a redo on last week since unfortunately, nobody could hear the damn thing. But that's okay. And then we'll continue pressing forward. And if you didn't notice it, we do ask at the beginning, when you initially register, if there's any specific trainings or topics that you want us to cover or anything like that you want me to kind of jam on in one of these live sessions, and by all means, keep that feedback rolling. Okay. So here's the order of operations today, and here's how we're going to do this. This is going to be short form. We're going to kind of jam on some stuff for about 20, 30 minutes. And then for those of you who stick around, if you have any questions, I'm going to stick around at the end and I'll take some questions. We'll do a little bit of Q&A. Okay. So I've reserved a little bit of time in my schedule to deal with that and kind of handle some of those things so that we can kind of interact and dial in. So if you have questions, then obviously stick around until the end. And then also for those of you who have questions, even if it's not related specifically to the subject matter that we're talking about today, that's totally fine. Feel free to go ahead and and just ask your questions anyway, and then we'll talk about it. So of course, at the end, you'll be able to ask Q&A. We'll do some Q&A specifically about our subject matter today. And then also we'll go ahead and cover any other questions related to your business growth and development so we can help as many of you out as possible. And then if you're watching the replay and you're finding this online, then, hashtag replay, let us know that you're watching the replay in the chat or whatever. So thank you all for being here. So the topic today is where your next deal comes from. The market's changing constantly, and this isn't a new thing, right? The market's constantly evolving and ever changing. So it can go from a seller's market to a buyer's market to an even market, and it obviously can go extreme in either direction. And while that's not unique to today's situation and today's current changing and moderately shifting real estate environment, the reality is it's very relevant today because we're coming off of such a volatile and incredibly extreme market. And with that, I think it's important to note that oftentimes we spend all of our time, money, and attention. I've got my notes here, so excuse me if I'm looking down every now and then. We spend all of our time, money, and attention trying to make sure that we can get more people into our database, right? And unfortunately, what a lot of agents, what a lot of business people in general forget is that your next deal is probably already in your database. See, we live in this now kind of world. We live in this let's go right now, let's play the game. And unfortunately, because we live in this now sort of world, we oftentimes we forget about people who aren't ready until later, right? Now, I'm not suggesting that we don't prioritize those who are ready to play the game now, that we shouldn't be prioritizing those who we can monetize in the next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, right? Obviously, if somebody wants to transact in real estate, buy or sell a home now, we need to pay attention to them in a different way than perhaps somebody who would be looking to transact in real estate in, say, 6 to 12 months or 1 to 2 years, right? So obviously we can't neglect what's in front of us and what's active now. But it's important for us to remember that real estate has a longer average sales cycle than other industries, than other products. We're selling the most expensive product that most people will ever purchase in their entire life, right? This is less about selling people into that product and more about providing that consultation, more about helping people get to their ultimate destination, right? We're the tour guide, if you will. We're the tour guide in their journey. Now, we're selling a super high ticket item, which means that people don't always and don't usually make the decision overnight. In fact, I would argue that real estate agents are not invited into the conversations typically about transactional real estate until right before somebody's ready to go, on average. And right before meaning like 3 months out, right? 1 to 3 months out, because by the time somebody says I'm ready to go, and then they talk to you, they kind of get a game plan together, they start looking at houses or get their house ready to be listed and then go through the process. It could take 2 to 3 months, right? Before we even get something going. So 3 months out is really like on top of business, like ready to go right now, right? Because that process of getting people dialed in and working with them starts ticking, obviously. So here's the thing. Because we're not invited into the conversations usually until the very end, right? Until right before somebody's ready to purchase or sell a home. It puts us in that now world. So it kind of like proliferates this issue of the here and now. And it makes us, because the sales cycles are generally longer on average anyway, we don't really want to talk to the person who's 12 months out, who's 24 months out, who's 3 years out, because we're just like, yeah, you get to me later, right? So we fall into this trap. And that trap is called set it and forget it. How many of you have heard of that before? You can just type right in the chat. How many of you heard of set it and forget it? We get really excited, like raise your hand or just put I have in the chat, right? Like we get really excited about this whole idea of set it and forget it, the systems that we can implement and put in place, the automation, the automated follow-up, the things that are just there. We say, well, hey, if they're not ready to go now, don't worry about it. Put them in your CRM, set it and forget it. Anybody can relate to that? Anybody? Go ahead and post up in the chat, say, that's me, or yes, right? Like if you've heard of that before, that whole phrase, that set it and forget it. And the problem is this, is that systems and technology is a good thing. We want the systems and the technology because it's designed to help us. It's designed to enhance our experience, right? It's designed to enhance the experience that others have with us. But what we can't do and what we can't afford to do is to allow that technology to replace us. So let me provide a little bit of clarity on what that looks like. See, oftentimes we'll get people that come into an open house, or we'll get people that, their houses have expired and we've reached out once or twice and they don't answer the phone, or they're not responding to our follow-ups from the open house. So what we do is we put them on a long-term drip campaign in a CRM. We set them up like we set it and forget it, right? Very similar to what people do with an MLS search, right? We put people on an MLS search and then we forget about them. Oh, yeah, it's fine. They said they want to buy a house, but I'll tell you what, I'm going to set them up on a property search. And when they're ready, they'll go ahead and come back to me. I'm going to set it up and then forget about them, right? At least my face is in front of them. But we forget that like this is about more engagement than just that. Like think about the chopping block that our commissions as an industry are on all the time, right? We have a pretty low opinion in the eyes of the public. And so what like the public opinion about us is garbage. They think that we don't work for our money. We just don't care about them. It's too easy to get a license. It's too cheap and easy to maintain a license. Like any Tom, Dick, and Jane can do it. The continuing education on average is garbage. You don't have to have business experience. You don't have to understand anything about real estate. Really, you just got to learn how to pass a test, and then you're free and clear to go, make the kill, if you will, right? So it's important for us to recognize and understand that from a consultative perspective, we have to be engaged and involved in the client's journey. The whole set it and forget it mentality is what gets a lot of us in trouble, because we set somebody up and we just assume that because they're getting the email with the property searches, or because they're on our drip campaign and they get our favorite apple pie recipe or whatever it is, like that they're going to remember us when it's time to transact. But how is that adding relevant and real value? They can go on to any big.com and get property updates, right? And most of them do. I don't know about you, but I know for me, I feel like our MLS is way behind the the user experience and that user interface that they can more easily get from a lot of the big tech companies, a lot of the big .coms. It's a path of lesser resistance for them to go to the big tech and the big .com to do property searches than it is on any IDX website or any MLS site, right? So of course, even if we set people up, it's not uncommon for them to continue going to those big sites. And guess what that also does? It helps them feel like they're not required to be connected to us, right? So they still have the freedom to move. They didn't just jump in bed with their agent. And I think this is important for all of us to remember, myself included. I have to go back regularly into my database and remember that the deals that I'm looking for are probably, already there. See, we spend so much time, money, and energy bringing people into our business and into our pipelines that we're like excited when we say, well, I got a lead, I got a contact, I got whatever. But if they're not in the transact now phase, if they're not 3 months or less ready to go, then we set it and forget it. We let them go. We pop them into an automation campaign. We pop them into some long-term drip, and we figure they'll just come back when they're ready. See, we focus more on acquisition, not even client acquisition, but we focus so much more on contact acquisition into our pipeline because it feels good to get contacts in there. We feel productive going into the office, even if we just sit there and play on our phones all day, right? We feel this, like I feel sometimes just getting out of the house makes me feel like I'm getting more done. Do you ever feel that way? Do you ever feel like you put yourself into action, but maybe it wasn't like anything productive, but you're like, well, I got some stuff done. I mean, I got out of the house. I was out of the house all day today. Well, that's great. Well, you're jerking off in the park. That doesn't do anything. Like maybe it rejuvenates your mind and gives you a little time for yourself. But at some point, you got to be in the business, right? We've got to be engaged with our pipeline. Getting the contact and living in this here and now phase is not what's going to ultimately explode your business and create consistency long term. And I kind of look at it like this. You ever seen those the ads for like let's pick anything, right? Like here's a good one, like Sirius XM, right? So you get these ads and they'll be like, oh, we're going to give you a free trial, right? And then what they do is they say, hey, like your first year with our business, with our plan, we're going to give you a subscription for, I don't know, let's just make it easy math. We're going to give you a subscription for $10 a month. Pay it up front. It's $120 for the whole year. You're all good. That's a 1-year promotion. Super excited about it. And then after that, you'll renew at our normal rate, right? But when they renew at the normal rate, it's like $30 a month, and it comes out to like $360. So you're tripling what it ultimately is. And their logic is that, well, it's all good. We're going to give the promotion to get people in the door, right? And then once you're in the door, you're hooked on our services, you feel really good, then we can just put you on auto renewal, we'll jack the price up, and then you're good to go. And they say, well, I want to cancel my plan. I want to cancel the plan. I go, well, okay, it's fine. You go, I want to come back. And they go, sorry, what's the deal? You have to threaten to cancel to keep your subscription, right? Or to keep your positive rate. Right. So it's interesting to me. It's just like these big giant companies. The point that I'm trying to make, I'm probably not doing a good job of it right now, but the point that I'm trying to make is so many companies focus on acquisition. They focus on client acquisition. They focus on contact acquisition, but they don't focus on retention. And so I want you to think about, are you running that kind of, are you running that Sirius model? Are you running the Sirius XM model where it's like you spend all the money getting people in and then like you jack the price up later? Right? Or are you spending time like retaining the client? My attitude is, well, okay, thanks for the new client rate. Like, appreciate that, the $10 a month. And I always ask them, I go, well, what's the client retention? What's the client retention rate that I get? What's like the special client retention price? They're like, I don't understand. I'm like, that's the problem. We don't understand. We're not understanding the cost to retain. We bring all these people into our database and we do nothing to actually help them. Apple pie recipes don't sell houses, people. Those are general branding campaigns, but they're designed to humanize you. They're designed to fill in the gaps between the important, real, and manual talks and conversations that you have. So if you're feeling stuck, whether you're brand new in the business and you've got a small sphere of influence, whether it's in state or out of state, like whether you've got a huge book of past clients, a huge book of contacts, chances are your next deal is already in your pipeline. It's already connected to somebody that you have had contact with in the past. And what I want to invite you to do is I want to invite you to reactivate with those people, I want to invite you to reactivate your communication with folks that have kind of slipped by the wayside. Okay, really quick, for those of you who are on here live, I'm going to go ahead and just a quick commercial break, if you will. But one of the things that we focus on is give me 2 minutes, and then I'm back on this topic. We'll keep going and finish up. Okay, and then obviously we'll open up for Q&A. But for those of you who are on here right now, I want to give you an opportunity to book kind of a free 15-minute game plan call with me. If you're interested, if you think that would help your business, if you feel like you've been kind of stuck, whether it's on lead gen, or maybe you're not feeling organized, maybe you're not clear on your numbers or what your production needs are, whatever it is that you're stuck on, whatever you're kind of feeling, it's just not like, it's just not working for you, right? On the right-hand side of your screen, there should be three little dots. And if you click on that, you should just see a 15-minute business planning call. You can go ahead and schedule that call. So just click that button. Should open up a link to my calendar. If you want to hop on a free 15-minute call, we'd love to do that for you. There's nothing for sale on this call, actually. Full disclosure, we actually don't sell anything on that 15-minute call on purpose. The idea is to kind of get some diagnostics and have a better understanding of like maybe where you're stuck in your business, and maybe just give you like one tactical tip. Like, it's kind of a quick call, but give you one tactical tip, one little thing that maybe can like nudge you in the right direction. And again, nothing for sale. It's my policy. Like, I can't sell you anything on that call. We don't even have time to sell you anything on that call. But if you're inspired and you feel like, hey, James, I'd be interested to know more about what you offer, what working with you guys look like and all that stuff, then we'll go ahead and set up like a full strategy call where we really break down your business, where I really get like a comprehensive understanding of what you've got going on. And then I can kind of see like if working together makes sense, if you have issues that I can help you with, and then I'll introduce you to some of the programs that we have. But that's not the 15-minute call, okay? But if you'd like a 15-minute business planning call, just kind of give perspective, right? I've kind of become an expert over the years. Like, it's just a passion of mine to be able to coach, teach, and educate. And when you're passionate about that stuff, sometimes like from the outside looking in, you become pretty aware of people's blind spots, and you can kind of notice and see the thing that like from inside the car, they just can't see. So if that's something you'd be interested in, like I said, you should see that open on the, if you click those three dots or somewhere on your screen, maybe it's in the chat box, you should be able to see that opportunity, and you can go ahead and find some time on my calendar in the next couple of days. We'll just jam on a quick 15-minute call, get down to business, and see if we can help you out. Okay. All right. So let me get back to it. Thanks for obliging and letting me dial that in. But very excited to work with you guys and kind of help you navigate through some of those little things in that kind of that planning call, kind of figure out where you're stuck and help kind of kick you in the ass in the right direction. Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit more about this. So what does it mean to reactivate? What does it mean to reactivate your pipeline? And a lot of people think that this is like a bombardment, right? A lot of us, like I remember when I first started doing this, I felt like, oh, Jesus, like these people are going to think I'm a real pain in the ass, because here I am, I'm reaching out to them and I'm just like peppering them with communication. And that's what I've learned is that's not the approach we want to take. Right. So what I found to be most productive for my business when I would reactivate my database and reactivate my list. And by the way, I'm saying this as much to me as I am to you. So I want you to really hear me out on this, because even as somebody who's running my own business, my own, like I mentioned before, if you've never met me, I guess I'll tell you now, but I'm still an active real estate agent. So I'm not some dude that just off the street started a coaching business. I guess I did, but I was an active agent, and I still am an active agent. Majority of my deals happen off market, do all that stuff now, right? But I'm in production right now, and I do the very things that I teach people like you how to do. And what I was going to say is what I found for my business is that even now there are times when I go through and go, oh shit, I fell into the here and now trap. I fell into the money now trap. I forgot about my long game, right? So I have to get back into reactivation mode all the time. Right. I have to get there and evaluate my business. I might be going through my own quarterly review and go, oh, shit, I totally forgot to reach out to these people. I totally lost touch with my long-term clientele, my long-term prospect opportunities. I need to reactivate them. So let me give you a real life example. Me and one of my buddies, we ran a reactivation campaign, and we kind of had this was like, I don't know, probably 5 years ago. And we're like, you know what? Let's go ahead and run a reactivation campaign. And we figured out the best way to do it would be to just go ahead and blast everybody with one text message. Like, no big deal, just a text message. And we hit every single one of them up. And for those, some of them probably wouldn't have known us more than maybe just at an open house. So we shot out a text message and just kind of asked like, hey, I don't know if you recall meeting me, but we had previously talked about you potentially wanted to buy or sell a house in the past. And I just wanted to check in with you and see if you're still in the market. Okay. Now, both of us had a pretty significant number of people that came back and had already purchased homes. They'd already purchased or sold their house. In fact, between the two of us, my buddy alone he sent out about 350-ish text messages. He got over 70 responses to that text message. Think about that. Over 20% of the people that received that text message responded. Okay. And of all those people that responded, okay, of all those people, most of them weren't interested anymore. They were just kind of like, yeah, piss off, leave me alone, whatever it is, right? But think about this for a second. 17 of them had already purchased or sold a home. 17. Now out here, where your average sale price, at the time is a little bit lower, but the average sale price maybe right now is about 1.1 million, average market price out here, right? For our median sale price in Southern California, where I'm located. But his average sale price back then was probably about 850 for like, if you were looking at like a normal kind of moderate median home price back, 5-6 years ago. And you look at the opportunity that was there, and not every house was that, right? A lot of them were like, 500 to 900,000 kind of thing, right? There was about $7 to $8 million worth of lost business opportunities. Think about that for just a second. But just think about what commission you would take home off of $8 million in sales volume. $8 million in sales volume and real estate production. How much would you take home off of that? It's significant, right? It's significant. It's at least a year. It's at least a year of commissionable opportunities out the door. For many of you, depending on where you live, for many of us, that could supplement 2 years. That could be 3 or 4 years. Think about the opportunities that are missed with $7 to $8 million of actual transactional business that you did not get because you just didn't follow up. Now, that was 17 people that had already disappeared, and I had a similar number, okay? And between the two of us, we both were able to reactivate about 20 contacts. Think about that. So about 10 each. I think he actually had a couple more than I did. So he had like 13, maybe 12, and I had 7 or 8. But we both sent out a few hundred text messages to reactivate those who we had already previously connected with. Think about how different the cold conversations are when you're trying to attract people into your pipeline, and what a huge difference it is. What a huge difference it is to reconnect with somebody that you've already spoken to versus somebody cold responding to an ad. Versus somebody who's like, oh yeah, maybe, like, but I don't know, right? I don't know who you are. We've never met before. Why am I seeing this? Why am I getting communication from you? What's the catch? What's the whatever, right? So it's important for us to make sure that we don't neglect, right? We want to look at what our retention program is. What's your retention pricing program, right? Like, look at like DirecTV too, for example, like that. Oh yeah, you get free NFL Sunday ticket if you sign with us for a 2-year contract or whatever. And then at the end of the year, I'd call them up and be like, well, all right, but what do I get the second year? They're like, nothing. It's $350 or whatever it is. So then I would, all right, fine. I'd eat shit that second year. It kind of averaged us out, right? $135 or whatever the hell it was for $175 per year kind of thing for NFL Sunday ticket on average. So then I would go at the end of the 2-year contract. They'd say, well, why are you terminating? I said, well, because I don't want to do this. Like, you guys aren't giving me any benefits to stay. And I'd cancel. And then I'd come back the next day and say, well, I want to go ahead and activate my service with DirecTV. I want to go ahead and get that NFL Sunday ticket for free. And they're like, oh, sorry, that's for new clients only. I'm like, I am a new client. They're like, no, you're a past client. I'm like, well, that's bullshit. Where's the retention? Where's the we don't want you to cancel membership benefit? Like, where's the bonus on that? And I'm not suggesting like they're not making money and like they don't deserve to make money. But my point is let's think about that, right? We get into this like money now phase. And if they're not ready to continue giving us money now, we're not worried about this long-term retention. What are you doing in between we do the set it and forget it campaigns. What are you doing in between all of the automated emails, the automated text messages, the automated property searches that go out there? What are you doing in between all of those? What are you doing in between all of those to keep up with the people that are in your pipeline, the folks that are in your database? Because that, my friends, is what's going to make the biggest difference in your business. The single biggest difference that you can make in your business is specifically staying on top of the folks that are already in your database, and then adding to it with other lead gen resources that you should be sending out. You shouldn't even be paying for leads. You should be sending those things out on your own. But we need to focus. The next deal is already in your pipeline. Now, that next deal might be 2 months out, it could be 6 months out. But think about it. Between my buddy and I, we reactivated about 20 folks. Between the two of us, we lost nearly $15 to $17 million worth of business because of people we didn't follow up with. Shame on us. Shame on us. That's a lot of opportunity to miss out on for our families. And that's a lot of people that deserved my help that didn't get my help. And I know that they worked with another agent who is certainly qualified to obviously get the job done, that they did better than I because they closed the transaction. But shame on me for cheating those people out of the opportunity to have the quality service that I know that they deserve, right? That's what we have to make sure that we're all focusing on. The people that you have in your database that you started connecting with in the first place, they deserve your service. And they need your service because presumably you're going to deliver it better than your competition. You're a better consultant. You're a better advisor. The question is are you a good communicator? So now what I want you to do is I want you to focus today on reactivating those folks that are in your database that you haven't talked to, that you haven't heard from in a while, and get down to business. Bring those conversations back to the surface and play that game. And from this point, I'm going to go ahead and just open it up to questions. So first of all, let me just see who's here because I've been running my mouth over here for a few minutes. We got Andy. Is it Radoslav? I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. Throw the phonetics in the chat and I'll make sure I say what's up. Kenneth, we got here. We got Thomas here. We got Jack here. Thank you very much for tuning in. I know I saw some others. We got Ron here. How you doing, buddy? Hope everyone's good. What questions can I answer for you today? So I'm going to go ahead and any questions that come in, I'll go ahead and take them. I got about what are we about? Just before 11:30. I got a few minutes for this. So we got maybe about 5 or 10 minutes or so. Rado, what's up, man? Thank you. There you go. Appreciate it. Go ahead and let me know if you have any questions. And just to clarify, your questions can be about anything that I covered today, anything that I talked to you about already today. Feel free to go ahead and ask questions about that. But if you've got something else in your business that you're stuck on and you kind of want to jam with me on it, that's fine. Go ahead and post your questions, and let's chat for a couple minutes. All right. Let's chat for a couple minutes. Looks like Rado. Looks like we're going to be talking. Tomorrow, my man. Rado went ahead and booked a business planning call. That's kind of cool, man. Thanks for doing that. Excited to connect. All right. So who has a question that I can answer? If I don't see any questions come in the next minute or so, then I'll just presume that I covered the topic here so substantially and perfectly that there's no reason for me to even stay on here. But if you guys have any questions about business, whether it's about lead gen, whether it's about follow-up, conversion, the market that we're in, what questions do you have? Feel free to ask those. And actually, while you're while I'm waiting to see if any questions pop up, I just want to kind of like dial in on a couple other things. It's okay if people on this specific subject. So ask your questions. If I don't see anything in the next minute, then I'm going to tie things up here and we'll rock and roll on out of here. Okay. And then, by the way, really quick, don't forget, if you'd like a free business planning call, you can by all means go ahead and book a free business planning call. It's about a 15-minute call. We'll just dial something in quick and hopefully get you unstuck, give you some tactical advancement on one or two things just on a quick call. Okay. So you should be able to book that. Should be in the chat, or you should see it somewhere on your screen. Okay. Yeah, that sounds great. Okay. So yeah, yes, I have some strategy to talk to you about, ask you about with current market. What is your mailer percentage? You know, and Ron, I'll get to you in just a second. Thomas, let me go ahead and answer that for you. So Thomas, with the current market, direct mail has decreased a little bit as expected, because what we're finding is on average, people are staying in their houses for longer. So a lot of folks who were considering moving before, as business kind of adjusts down, as interest rates increase, and as demand kind of adjusts down a little bit, we're seeing people stay in their house on average a little bit longer than before. And a lot of folks who were purchasing ended up buying longer term homes because they wanted to really stick there. Some people, unfortunately, because of the increase in interest rates, are not able to afford what they were looking for before, right? So affordability has decreased quite a bit. So on average, I would say across the board, on average, direct mail campaigns have reduced just a little bit, but it is still unquestionably and exponentially greater and better and higher ROI than any other lead generation strategy that I do on a consistent basis, or have ever done on a consistent basis for that matter. Now, to give a little bit more clarity on that, Thomas, some of it depends on the type of campaign that you're running. So for example, contrary to popular belief, FSBOs have actually been fantastic resources to go over the last couple of years. Now, a lot of people, just to give a little example, a lot of people are like, well, that doesn't make sense, James. It's been easier for anyone to sell their house on their own, arguably, in the last 2 years than ever before, because you could like, if you were thinking of selling your house and you farted in the wind, then somebody would be like, oh shit, I smell a sale, and they'd come buy the house, right? So, but the way that you choose to leverage those things is it all depends, right? So my direct mail, I'm not necessarily looking specifically for the FSBO listing, but rather offering different value, offering, contacts and contractors and systems. And, I'll give them a free website. I'll give them a free phone number so that they can keep some of their information private, right? So there's different ways that I've been able to monetize and leverage that stuff. So like the FSBO direct mail campaigns increased in their productivity over the last couple of years, whereas expireds would be significantly down because there's hardly anybody expiring. So on a general average, I would say direct mail, on a general average, if I looked at it, I think that there was a mailing increase and a slight decrease, probably about a 10% decrease in responses overall. But that's very small as a long-term comparison, right? A 10% decrease in response is not substantial by any means. And the only reason I personally believe that we saw a decrease in response was not because most people were all of a sudden sending out direct mail in the true fashion that I send it out in, but I think a lot of people just were increasing their mail volume. So, you would have people sending out more postcards, or sending out like really shitty, like every door direct letters, and, bulk mail, and very like gimmicky kind of bait and switch shit. And so I think, you lose a little bit of credibility. But on the same hand, I think the reason it stayed so high and we only lost 10% ish in our response rate is because you end up you stand out in the crowd, right? You have people who are like, well, if I'm going to call anybody, it's going to be this guy. But on average, obviously, we've seen like a slight, decrease in transactions, which as transactions have decreased or were in a lower production state than years past, obviously we're going to naturally see a decrease on average, right? So what does LSA stand for? Could you expand on that, Ron? Do you feel Google LSA is a good lead gen strategy as far as ROI? Let me just look at what is Google. I might know what it is. I just may not have heard it referred to as that. Local service ads. I got you. Thank you, Ron. Google ads in general are doing and have done significantly better over the last several years than, say, Facebook ads. I would say you're very welcome, Thomas. I would say that in general, Google ads are outperforming Facebook, specifically with respect to real estate. And on average, in many industries, that would also be the case. Now, one of the things that's happened with Google recently, unfortunately, is what Facebook went through several years ago, which is like, if you guys didn't know this, so one of the little hacks to Google that you could make, which was really, really sexy, is that you didn't have to really obey the same rules as you did on Facebook. Facebook got kind of accused of and was kind of toeing the line of operating as a broker and, whatever. So they had to comply with like certain fair housing rules and all this other shit. And so you couldn't run ads without having a 15-mile radius, for example, around where you wanted to run the ad from. So instead of honing in on like a very specific community, because they're trying to avoid discriminatory practices and things of that nature, you couldn't really like focus in that much, right? So Google was kind of a loophole to that. Same with like YouTube. Actually, in some ways, YouTube kind of still is, because you can advertise on really, really specific channels, and they're obviously owned by Google. But for real estate ads, you're starting to have to comply with the same shit on Google as you've had to for Facebook for the last several years. So some of those flexibilities and things are disappearing. I would say on average, you're still going to end up having better results on Google and lesser expensive results on Google than on Facebook. But Ron, I want you to pay attention to a couple things on there, because it's really important when you're running ads that, keep in mind the competitiveness of ads. So if you've never been, like, just to give an example, like the easiest one to consider would be like, look at the number of searches on Google, right? Like the number of searches and how competitive a keyword is on Google compared to others. If you've never been into the ads library on Facebook, you should be able to see how many other ads, how many other real estate related ads are running within a radius of where you're looking to run ads, right? And so those types of things give insights into what you can expect from a competitive standpoint and a quality of lead standpoint, a quality of contact standpoint, right? So I do think it's not a bad lead generation strategy, but I will tell you, you definitely have to do more follow-up on those contacts that come into your database, Ron, than you may with other lead gen strategies. So for example, and by the way, that's not a bad thing. Let me clarify that as well. And by the way, Ron, if I'm not answering your question, then let me know. And if anyone else has questions, feel free to ask. But what I was going to say is more follow-up isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I think it's interesting how we, on average, kind of categorize and throw all lead generation efforts and all contact acquisition into the same follow-up attempts and the same required strategies for follow-up and the same servicing for communication, right? So for example, let's say that you send out a direct mail campaign and I average 1.4 conversations to an appointment on direct mail. And the reason is because people call me, and sometimes people have to reach back out, or I have to reach back out to them because they want to confirm that what I'm offering and what I'm providing to them is real, right? I'm not just full of shit. What I said in my letter was honest and whatever, but also because they may have to, okay, now that I've validated that, I want to go talk to my spouse. I want to, check in with them and blah, 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 right? And like before I do anything. And then we can book an appointment that we can all be at, right? So on average, I'm 1.4 communications on direct mail. And my expectation is about that anyway, because people get my message on direct mail, they're going to call me. Now, if I'm running like a tripwire, like a let's say a squeeze page, like a landing page, I might say like, hey, I'm going to give you a FSBO guide for free, like enter your email here, right? Like whatever, or enter your address and your phone number and your email here. I expect that I'm going to have to follow up with those people a lot more, right? Because the way that they came in was a more generic call to action, a more generic kind of campaign. Like I'm going to give you a free guide and then I'm going to follow up with you on like a bunch of other stuff. But I don't have like a specific, like, I'm going to help you by doing this exact, very specific thing. And you have to communicate with me to get it. It's more like, hey, I'm going to give you a free thing and you can probably do all of it without me. But if it's cool with you, I'm going to follow up anyway, right? Just to double check on if you have questions and to try and sell stuff, right? So I think it's important for you to just remember that every type of lead generation that you do is going to require different amounts of follow-up and different types of follow-up. So if I have somebody come in on a Facebook ad, I expect to literally, no exaggeration, I expect to literally have to reach out 15 times at a minimum just to try and even get them to respond to me that they are or are not interested in having a conversation beyond that. Whereas a direct mail piece, I'm going to send that communication out one time. If they don't fucking call me, it's fine. And if they do, then awesome, right? We're rocking and rolling. So cool. So Ron says this is helpful. Glad to hear that. So the LSA, so local service ads, where you pay Google. Then when someone types in homes for sale in Crazy Town, USA, you get the list of Google business profiles. This local service ad service places your Google business profile at the top. That does make sense. Yep. This is a service that Ylopo is offering now. Zillow dropped all agents in my market, so I'm having to find new lead gen strategies. Thanks for your insight. It is great. Well, first of all, you're welcome. I'm glad to hear that. Second, Zillow is doing a lot of things. I think if I could just emphasize this really quick, and I'm going to encourage you, Ron, and anybody else for that matter, that's still on here. And if you're watching the replay, there should be a button below this replay video. You can also book a business planning call, a strategy call. Excuse me. Sorry, I have something in my eye there. You can definitely book a business planning call with me, but and it's a free call. There's nothing for sale on that call. If you want to work with us, then you can. We'll set up a longer call so that we can really dig deep into your business and see if one of the programs we have is good for you. But what I was going to say is this is like my jam, dude. Like helping people learn how to lead generate. I don't sell leads and I don't do done for you lead generation services for people, but I do teach people how to lead generate, and it's very important. And I say this with utmost respect, Ron, but it's really important for you to know how to lead generate for yourself for this exact reason, right? So many agents, and I say this to all of us, right? So many agents were in bed deep with Zillow or in bed deep with other lead gen sources. But guess what happens when their business model changes? They want to jack the prices up or drop everybody or become a brokerage and only work their own shit or whatever it is. All of a sudden, we're screwed, right? If we don't know how to lead gen for ourselves, we're totally screwed. And at the mercy of what they are willing to accept payment wise or referral fee wise or whatever, right? So it is important for you to understand how to do all of this stuff on your own. And if you don't do it on your own, to at least have control of the system that does. For example, what you don't want to do is say, oh, cool, I can still get Zillow leads, but I have to get them through my brokerage because my brokerage is a, whatever, right? That now cripples me, and I'm tied specifically to the brokerage that I'm at, and I'm stuck with whatever they're willing to provide. Still not something that I have control over. So if Ylopo is something, as an example, that's offered through your broker or offered through somebody else, then that's where you have to be careful, right? So if it's something that you're paying for and investing in on your own, that's where you get full benefit. In fact, this is what we talked about. Offering like the kind of like a freedom package for real estate agents, right? What I tell people all the time is like, it's funny that we're called independent contractors, right? Because we're not really independent contractors. Most agents are dependent on the brokers and dependent on the third-party service providers to do the shit for them. And this is where I'm saying, like, don't set it and forget it when it comes to your current pipeline. Don't set it and forget it. You have to make sure that you're reaching out in your pipeline and controlling that process, because you still have to be hands-on with the business. You have to be in control of what that looks like. If you leverage a system and you're never involved in the system that you're leveraging, then guess what? The system owns your business. But if you own the system, control the system, set up the sequences and set things up so that you're involved in the process of the sales and the consulting, and you allow the apple pie recipe to supplement you as a human, but not replace in any capacity what you offer as a business owner, then you win. So you are a dependent contractor as long as you are like hosed by your brokerage and using the systems that they require or / provide you, right? Because we go, oh, well, they're giving them to me, I might as well use it because I pay for it out of my split. And then the second part is you have to control your lead generation. Now, buying leads and supplementing with other resources or other referral bases and all that stuff, that's okay. But what you don't want to do is be crippled by the fact that you don't know how to lead generate for yourself. So here's my last thing. So, and by the way, if there's any last minute follow-ups, I probably got time for one more question. But otherwise, if you're watching this live, remember, you can book a strategy call with me. It's just a game plan call, whatever you want to call it. Book a game planning call with me, and we'll try to get you unstuck and point you in the right direction. And you can't buy anything on that call if you wanted to, but if on that call you're like, hey man, I'm kind of stuck and I'd like a deeper dive. Like maybe we could go into like a full strategy session and really dissect my business and, see what you have to offer and whatnot. I don't bring everybody in. I don't invite everybody into the products we have because I'm not perfect for everybody. But I do specialize in teaching lead generation. I do specialize in teaching you how to control your systems and take control of your business and gain the independent part of independent contractor back by being in control of those things. Okay. So making you non-reliant on your brokerage beyond contract support, beyond just holding your license, right? And transactional support if you need it, and making sure that you own your CRM, you own your systems, you own your sequences, and most importantly, that you know how to generate your fucking leads. All right, you guys, listen, I've got about 14 minutes left before I have an appointment, and I'm going to take the opportunity to go inhale some food, get some water in my system, probably pee, and then get back over here for my next appointment. Super appreciate all of you who tuned in today. If you're watching the replay, remember you can set up a call with me below if you'd like. Just click the button if you're watching the replay. And for those of you who joined us for the live, I hope to see you on the next one. We'll probably mess around with the times a little bit, trying to figure out if it's 10 a.m., 11 a.m., or like 3 p.m. or whatever is Pacific time that works best for people. But appreciate y'all tuning in. And thanks so much for being part of the Real Estate Raw Facebook group. If you're not in there, go check it out. And we'll catch you guys soon. Remember something, real agents work. Make sure you're one of them. Oh, and Mr. Keith, fight on, brother. We'll see you guys.